bill, perhaps the bill of entry is perhaps is being assessed. Considering the overall dimension, it's time that we look at both sides in equal weightage. So we would start the program by roughly asking the panelists to give their initial thoughts on the scheme, the entire construct of the scheme, the highlights and the larger issues that they are expecting in its implementation way forward, both on the direct and the indirect side. And then we will go, we have a set of questions that we have prepared, which we will be asking the panelists, of course, after the intervention by our two famous friends, Mr. Shailendra, Kumar and Vijay, on the concepts. And then we will come up with the questions and we'll have a floor intervention also by the participants who want to ask pertinent questions, either through the chat board or through the Q&A. We will first start with the income tax side. Over to Mr. G.C. Srivastava for his thoughts on the construct of the scheme, followed by Rohit.
See, I mean, as I see it, I mean, this is not some change in procedure as quite often happens. It's a big cultural change that is sought to be introduced. And that's where all the risk lies, that it's a change of culture in tax departments. Now, we are used to a certain way of handling the assessments, or scrutinizing the people, or calling the taxpayers, interacting with him and passing the orders for decades and decades. And now, then we are told that, yes, now you have to be faceless. So at that cultural change would achieve success only if the stakeholders are really in tune with it. And the stakeholders being taxpayers, the chartered accountants, or the intermediate people who represent the taxpayer, and the officers of the department. So the mindset of all the three has to undergo a definite change to really see the advantages of this scheme. Now, coming to the broad theme, you know, if the idea is to have a complete transparency, if the idea is to have the efficiency, if the idea is to have accountability, nobody can debate the purpose behind the introduction of this scheme. And this was debated by us also in the task force when we were working on that draft bill for the new law. And one thing that was very deeply entrenched in our mind is that this would develop the expertise. Now, today, the assessing officer, one person is interested with all work related to assessment, recovery, collection, rectification. He has to study the law, he has to prepare, he has to investigate. I mean, so many odd things. Now, if these can be branched out, and some specialists be given the task that you look here, you work on the investigation part of it, you on verification part of it, you do the research work, the law, the jurisprudence on the subject, the market, the industry, how it works. If one section of the group of the people can do that, then it would do a lot of good, both for the revenue and for the taxpayer. So I believe that, and as I have understood this scheme, it has a lot of good future. It's a very bright future. Yes, subject to the condition that the change in culture, I mean, the mindset has to change, and the stakeholders really accept it to their good. I think.
Thank you very much, Mr. D.C. Srivastava, for the opening comments and your thought on the construct. We will now ask Rohit to give his views. Rohit Jain, and these people don't need introduction as far as the fraternity and the community is concerned. Over to Rohit.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. So, with the preliminary remarks from G.C. Srivastava, sir, my take on this faceless assessment would be, I think, as sir rightly said, it is not only going to have a cultural change, it is going to have a paradigm shift in the way how we go through the assessment process. And I think this is a very, very welcome step which the government has come with faceless assessment. As sir rightly said, it is going to, give it is going to lead to transparency. Of course, there may be certain initial issues with regard to its implementation, but how the things have settled with regard to the online filing, I am more than sure and more than certain that the issues or the practical issues which relates to the faceless assessment are also going to settle down. I think from departmental perspective, they have enormous information available with them. Now we are going to move from a stage where we used to get long questionnaires relating to assessments, initial assessments. Most of the questions were stereotype, cut, copy, paste. Now I think we are moving towards a stage where we are going to get very intellectually selected questions, and it will be like a limited scrutiny, maybe probably based on the specific information which may come to the department or the analysis of the financial statement. Because if you see the financial statements of big companies, there is lot and lot of information which is contained in the notes to accounts and the audited financial statement itself. In fact, no one needs to look into any other information other than reading the financial statements of top 500 companies, and you will get best of the issues which can be raised or which needs to be evaluated in case of big companies. I think so. There's going to be there is going to be a cultural change. There is going to be a paradigm shift. No long queues. You only have to do the filing from your residences. And what is important for the purpose of implementation is the intent is followed by its implementation. So for example, I think if I have attended various conferences on this faceless assessment, most of the government departments, the representatives have said that we want now the assessments to be very limited to the specific issues being raised. It is not going to be a general assessment which is going to take place. I think if the officers who are implementing this, if they were to follow it with the right intent, this is going to be a great success insofar as the faceless assessment is concerned. We are going to get very good issues. The quality of the assessment orders is going to increase. And in fact, the earlier the assessees used to say that the assessment orders was bereft of reasoning, etc. I think all those issues will go out. Now you will have territory-less assessing officers. You don't have territorial jurisdictions. It will be one officer. It will be one center where you will be filing all those information. So I think it's a very, 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 very welcome step and a paradigm shift in the way the assessments are going to take place. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Rohit. And as far as the customs is concerned, all of us will agree that if you look at the 5-6 major circulars that were issued between the beginning of June of 2020 and till date, the focus has been very clear. The objectives sought to be achieved are faster clearance of goods, reduced interface between the trade and the customs officers, and enhanced ease of doing business. If this is the crux of this whole faceless assessment program under customs. Now, commencing from the pilot programs in places like Chennai and then moving upwards, you will find that this entire national assessment centers being created, the rationale for selection of zones, the rationale for selection of conveners of the zones, all that has been very nicely documented, and they moved step-by-step procedure. They manner that would give the sense of comfort that everything is stacking up before the ultimate rollout, which happened on 31st of October. So considering this overall slow build-up in a phased manner, would request first Mr. R.K. Singh to give us views on what does he think about the construct, keeping in mind the phased implementation that has happened, and then we will go to Mr. Dhingra and then Mr. Himanshu. Over to you, Mr. Singh. Sir, I hope we have not lost you in the connection. Mr. R.K. Singh, please.
He's very much there, I think, settling down. He's trying to... No, I think we have lost his voice. He's speaking, we can't hear him.
Your mic, sir.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes,
May
sir,
I
that's
change my
fine.
position because the place I was sitting was not having a good connection, but now it's better.
Nothing to do with Vastu, sir.
No, it's just a distance from the server or whatever. Thanks for the invite. I have looked at the faceless scheme of the customs with in some detail. I must point out that the faceless assessment in customs is very different from the faceless assessment in income tax. And actually, income tax model is not transplantable to customs because certain aspect of assessment will have to be faceful, so to say, because examination is sorry, is an integral part of customs assessment, and examination needs to be in physical contact. And therefore, to that extent, it is not really faceless. Now, I see two benefits in the faceless assessment of customs. One is the availability of the expertise to assess the goods. For example, in the smaller ports like Dadri, there may not be enough expertise available for assessing all variety of goods which end up getting imported there. So the national assessment centers, which are part of the faceless group, faceless assessment, will be able to apply the requisite knowledge of law, of procedure, of various judgments, of audit objections, of WCO clarifications, and the host of it. That knowledge will be brought down to the assessment of the goods, and therefore it will lead to quality assessment, it will lead to uniformity, and it will lead to a comfort zone for everybody because they would know that the assessment has been done by people who really know the law and have the right knowledge. Unlike today, where the smaller ports sometimes are found highly inadequate for the purpose of assessment of various complicated goods. Second, the facelessness will also reduce the undesirable activities which are alleged to be taking place in the assessment process. So these two are the major benefits. The minor benefits will be that these national assessment centers will be able to collate their experience on a nationwide basis to develop better procedures, to develop better expertise, to coordinate with the enforcement agencies, with the risk assessment directorates, to upgrade their system, to upgrade their checks and balances, and they'll also be able to interact with the trade industry at a central level. So these are the major benefits. The flip side is that in cases, the of entry will back to the port assessment group in a situation where on a second check, for example, some discrepancy is found, or it will bounce to the assessment group if any violation noticed by the PSC, the NSC, or in cases where any adjudication is to be done. Now, these are the situations where the back to the square one kind of thing will happen, and we'll be again back to the port assessment groups. One point which is important to notice is that even otherwise, 80% of the bills of entry were facilitated. They were not having any interaction at all with the customs. So all this system is being developed for about 20% of the bills of entry. And the examination remains a very, very sticky point because the reports are that the examination of the goods is creating a lot of difficulties because of some differences being found. I'll come back to what can be done about it, but as of now, it's a good step, it's a major step forward, and any kind of technological improvement is always welcome in the assessment of goods. So I would welcome it with some caution, which I'll narrate later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. R.K. Singh. And now we request Mr. Ashok Dhingra to give his views on the construct and also focus on the, because one point which we were wanting to hear from Mr. R.K. Singh, maybe you can also touch upon is the exceptional circumstances in which the it would be done by the port of import. So if you could also focus on that and whether that clarity as far as the trade is concerned is there.
Thanks, Sridhar. I'll take a cue from Mr. J.C. Srivastava and I'll step back and then I'll start from where Mr. R.K. Singh has said. I remember the old days in 1970s and till early 80s. In most of the customs and excise office, there was a play card on the in front of the officer sitting there that in case of doubt, assess at the highest rate. So we have come a long way from that. And over the years, the CBC, now known as CBIC, has moved a lot. And in the last 5 years, a lot of directional change has happened. So Mr. Srivastava is right in saying that our cultural change has happened. And I'll put it another step further that maybe probably DNA is changing. It may not change in the older generation, but yes, definitely the new generation of officers which are coming in the board now, they will have a different DNA and they will probably look at the things in a different way. So starting from the assessment, when even in excise or custom, when officers used to come there and everything was fully controlled, moving to faceless is a big step taken by the government and the CBIC, and is much appreciated. The purpose, as Mr. R.K. Singh has rightly said, is behind in manifold, including the unwanted things which were happening in department, right or wrong. I mean, it was putting a blot on some of the officers, though not everybody is bad. Largely, people are good, and they are. I mean, working to their not only the chartered citizen charter, but also working in terms of the law. Now, after the introduction of faceless, few things have happened. One, that the assessee has benefited that, okay, now bill of entry, the 20% bill of entry, which Mr. R. Singh has mentioned, that which were are being assessed physically, faceless will apply to them largely because other 80% were coming through the risk management system and being cleared without any intervention by the custom officer at the port of import. So for those 20%, whatever system is there, are people who have been part of the 80%, but subsequently getting into trouble. So they now are going to get the benefit of it. Large amount of emphasis is given on self-assessment, which was introduced in customs in 2011. And from that, today moving to faceless assessment, it's a big sea change, and we are moving in a very different direction. The biggest challenge, which Sridhar asked me to look at it, is the exception circumstance under which a bill of entry can be sent back by the faceless assessment group to the port assessment group. One, exception circumstance is there where it is a related party transactions. In case of transactions with associated enterprises and where no assessment order has been passed by the special valuation branch of customs, so that means essentially it's a first transaction or a new, the shipment or new transaction or new importer. In that case, it has to be referred to the port assessment group. And then with the consent of the commissioner, the matter will be referred to the jurisdictional special valuation branch of customs. And in that case, they will do the verification and everything. That is the, one exceptional circumstances. Second is there that where there is any large dispute is there. So in that case also, where the port faceless assessment group thinks that after first check, there is a need, then the matter needs to be placed before the port assessment group, and they have to look into those things. But these are the exceptions which are not going to, impact the implementation thereof. What is really happening at the ground level is there that today, for example, if a particular assessment group is looking after a particular goods in a particular port, lot of goods which are hazardous goods or which are specialized goods which are coming at different and notified ports. Now that bill of entry, for example, of scrap or hazardous scrap or any other matter of petroleum, which is assigned to any group officer, coming at Chennai, but assigned to a person sitting in Delhi, he may not have the requisite experience to deal with that. So he will not understand how to deal with that. So that may cause delay. While objective of the CBIC is definitely noble, but there are certain challenges like this. Second challenge is there that while the board has said that if there is a dispute of classification or valuation and the issues are not resolved by the group and the importer does not agree to the assessment done by the faceless assessment group, then the order has to be passed by the faceless assessment group under section 17(5) within 15 days. Section 17, subsection 5 is there in the statute for decades, but it's not actually happening. We have seen cases where even after years and even after filing appeals, the Commissioner of Appeals are remanding. So this is not happening. So board has to, put some responsibility on the stakeholders and also on the officers, some responsibility to pass not only a timely order, but a reasonable order in the matters to make this faceless assessment a successful tool in the hands of not only, the authorities and for the ease of doing business, but also for implementation of Make in India scheme as well. Over to you, Sridhar.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Dhingra. And over to Mr. Himanshu for his views for the structural principles and his initial views on the scheme.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Sridhar, and very good.
We have lost you, sir. Suddenly, there's a freeze in the image. Hello. Shikhar, can you just check, please?
I can't see anything wrong here.
Gone off.
Zoom.
Yeah, some.
I think Jain,
Maybe connection went bad.
Yeah, we'll wait.
Setting it right.
I think the Wi-Fi connection is very bad nowadays.
Oh my God! It says Mr. Himanshu Tiwari has left. That's what it says.
No, he's trying to rejoin perhaps.
Okay.
The Zoom sometimes it quits on its own. The Zoom does that. That's because it's an American.
And managing faceless assessment.
Let me, Sridhar, let me fill in the meantime. A quick few points. While I did admire the scheme of faceless assessment, I must caution that the whole scheme's success will critically depend upon the monitoring to be done by the powers that be. Because if you look at the scheme of things, bill of entry is to be assessed in 5 hours, for example, that is a critical thing. The review is to be taking place every day, every week, every month, unless a very critical review is done to ensure that frivolous queries are not made. Number 2, that the examination reports are not deliberately given a slant so as to cause difficulties for the assessees. That will be a very critical factor. The ground reports are that the examination reports are nowadays being made, which always, or at least in many cases, cause undue harassment. And because of that, the bill of entry bounces back to the port assessment group, and we are back to square one. That's one point. Second point is that in case the National Assessment Center, the FAG, finds there is some violation, that bill of entry shall be sent to the provincial port assessment group for adjudication. Now, there is a dichotomy there. What happens if the
Sir,
port
can I come back to you? Mr. Himanshu has joined.
Oh,
Mr.
good. I was just filling in.
Mr. Himanshu.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Sridhar. So apologies for this break, technological glitches. I was saying that I can't agree with more with Mr. R.K. Singh when he said that the faceless assessment of customs and faceless of assessment in income tax are not portable, and they are so different. The volume of transactions and the real-time nature of transactions that customs faceless assessment has to handle is very different from annual return-based interaction that the income tax assessee has to have with the income tax department. But if I step back and try and see that what is the framework within which this whole faceless assessment needs to be examined, and the global framework is to be borrowed from trade facilitation agreement. The overall objective of quick clearances, less than 48 hours should be cleared, etc., gets borrowed from the trade facilitation agreement to which signatory. And within that, the Turant Customs scheme, which has 3 pillars: the faceless assessment, the paperless assessment, and the contactless assessment. When we string it all together, the ultimate objective that the government is trying to achieve can be seen, and where I would say that government has shown considerable conviction in bringing out in a very relentless manner and in a very phased manner this whole initiative of paperless customs through e-Sanchita scheme, contactless customs, and finally the faceless customs part of the scheme. But the faceless customs scheme for customs is also unique because the diversity of the products, which requires specialization and which is also reflected in the nature of institutional mechanism that is being framed. It has a faceless assessment group, it has a port assessment group. As Mr. R.K. Singh said, that there can be some part of the assessment which can be faceless, but there has to be some which has to be with face, or you can't avoid a face-to-face interaction. Then you have National Assessment Center, then you have Turant Seva Kendra, and then so this whole institutional mechanism also demonstrates the diversity and the difference of the problem statement that CBIC is trying to address. I would say that the conviction of the board to bring these changes is commendable. However, if I see it from a business perspective and some of the teething problems, I'm sure that this can be seen as what in startup world is called a minimum viable product has been introduced. It will engage with the industry and the administrative mechanism where this viable product will stabilize, mature, and achieve its efficiency. The administrative efficiency that it can drive is phenomenal because the resource utilization can increase dramatically. The data-driven decision-making that it supports is in itself can be phenomenal, because CBIC, when it takes decision at the center, some of it is based on perception of what we have experienced in our life. But here we have hard data to support the decision making, which will make it much more close to the ground, much more targeted, and much more based on the real life live data rather than the data which has a phase lag. So in many sense, the real-time nature of this initiative and the support that the business needs, it is a very peculiar problem. And in that sense, if I may say that if business is facing a challenge where multiple measures are being rolled out in quick succession, which leads to enormity of change, and at times the whole system at both the ends get overwhelmed with this enormity of change. So if some of these things can be spaced out a bit, phased out a bit, that could help. And I'm just giving an illustration. Like September 21st, the Karotar scheme was Karotar related compliances were introduced, and October 31st we go live with this. When you see the impact of both these changes on those who are impacted by it, I guess it can be phenomenal. So if some of these things can be fine-tuned and spaced out, the objective is laudable. I guess we are moving in right direction. It will mature. It is, but we'll have to keep our ears close to the ground and see how data is speaking to us and how we can quickly respond to the analytics of the data. I'll pause there and return it back to Sridhar.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Himanshu. Now I think we'll go back to Mr. The direct side with a few observations, which we have noted down, and we would request Mr. Srivastava and Rohit to comment on them. Our first viewpoint, which we would like them to comment on, is if you look at the current structure of the law, which has been now passed in the new section 144B, the approach to the law is looking very complicated, first of all. Second is, Conceptually, there are three principles enlisted in this whole scheme of things. There is a draft assessment order. There is a very clear concept of a final draft assessment order and a revised assessment order. So if you put all these terms together, how many opportunities does an assessee get to object before the assessment group or the National Assessment Center before an assessment order is perhaps issued? So that will be the second point. The third point, which is very, very important, is the current new law specifically talks about the fact that there would be a notification by the board, as may be specified, with regard to the territorial areas, the classes of persons, and the class of incomes to which this whole scheme would appear and would apply, sorry. So that is one. And if you go down and see the latest amendments that have been introduced in the law, there are a list of other sections. For example, transfer pricing, power of inquiry, how to collect demand, etc., etc. All this have got changed now, or they have been insertion by way of new sections. Now, considering all this, do you really believe largely that we have the digital power in the department to handle this? One. And what would happen to the professional assistance that in future would happen? Because if you are we really looking at a situation assessee vis-a-vis the faceless authority and then close? No need for anything else professional. Is that what ultimately we are driving at? And last but not the least, what about the maintenance of digital records? And are there any concerns on cyber security around this new faceless assessment? I know I have put so many things into 2-3 minutes. I'm sorry if I have asked too many, but you can address as much as possible, sir, and then we move to Rohit. Mr. Srivastava, please.
I think Rohit, would you like to address some of these issues?
Yes, sir. Sir, so I'll first take up the first issue of procedural as to draft order, final order. I'll first explain what actually the concept of this faceless assessment is. So the concept is that first of all, the assessee will receive a notice from the faceless assessment through obviously the National Faceless Assessment Center. And how the scheme is drafted is that it is going to be a specific inquiry. But we understand it is not going to be a general questionnaire which is issued. A specific kind of a questionnaire would be issued highlighting certain specific issues. Thereafter, the assessee is going to file a response to that whatever specific queries are raised. Basis the response, and of course, there will be opportunities which will be given to the assessee to file response, he may seek adjournment. So all that has been built into the scheme itself. After the assessee has filed its complete reply, the assessing officer can seek the assistance of the investigation unit, the verification unit, etc., etc. After the entire this process has been completed, thereafter a draft assessment order, which will be the first draft assessment order, which will be prepared by the assessment unit of the National E-Assessment Center. That draft assessment order will then go to the National E-Assessment Center. The National E-Assessment Center will then do its risk assessment and to see whether or not there is a variation in the draft assessment order vis-a-vis what was returned by the assessee. So assuming for a moment that there is certain variation which is proposed by the draft assessment order, in that situation, and based on the risk management which has been done, I think that will be all computerized based on whatever is put into the information. They will then, the assessment center will have two options. Either to send the draft assessment order to the review unit, or that draft assessment order then may be sent to the assessee as a draft order for his, it will be like a show cause notice to the assessee to comment on the draft assessment order. Assuming for a moment that the National Assessment Center sends it to the review unit will give its comments. And with its comments, it will send back the draft assessment order back to the National Assessment Center. Thereafter, the National Assessment Center, what will it do? It will send it to a different assessment center, assessment unit. So it will not go to the assessment unit which originally proposed the draft assessment order. It will go to a different assessment unit along with the comments of the review unit. Thereafter, the new assessment unit is supposed to come out with a final draft assessment order. So first of all, it was draft assessment order. Now the name has been changed to final draft assessment order. That's the difference between the draft order and the final draft assessment order. The final draft assessment order, which will be done by the new unit, new assessment unit, will again go back to the National Assessment Center. National Assessment Center will again, follow the same process which it followed in the first instance. It will review it. It will do its risk assessment. It may either send it again back to another review unit, or then it may send it to the assessee for its comments. So this order will be called as final draft assessment order, which goes to the assessee for his comments, and then the assessee will give his objections. Once the objections are filed by the assessee, then those objections are given back to the last assessment unit which prepared the order which was given to the assessee. So if it was the stage of the original draft order, it will go to the original draft assessment center. If it is the stage of final draft assessment order, it will go to the next assessment unit. So along with the comments of the assessee, which will be like a reply to the show cause notice, it will come back, and it will come back to the assessment unit which prepared that assessment. Thereafter, considering the reply of the assessee, if the variation is proposed, again a show cause will be given. Otherwise, that order will be treated as final. In case it is a 144C assessment, it will be given as a formal draft order. Thereafter, the assessee will have an option either to go to the DRP or can give a reply to it that I am okay with the final order. I am ready to pursue the CIT appeal, the normal appellate proceeding. Otherwise, it will be a final, they will finalize the assessment. So basically, there are specific concepts or the names is been given to various orders depending upon which stage the assessment order has gone through. So the first stage is the draft order. After the review, it is final draft assessment order. After the comments of the assessee, it is revised draft order, and then the final order. So this is how they have, given into put into different compartments. Conceptually, this is a very good concept, because what is happening is that at every stage, wherever there is, after the risk assessment, if there is a variation, they are giving the opportunity to the assessee. So at every stage, it is not that only one opportunity is given to the assessee. Depending upon, before a final order is passed, with a variation, an opportunity is given to the assessee. The only difference over here is, and I think which I would request sir to comment, is because if we see the scheme or the act section itself, it says the opportunity will be of hearing will be given to the assessee in certain circumstances which are yet to be notified. What I understand from various, the representations which have been made and with the reply which has come, what we understand is in every case, wherever there will be a variation, an opportunity of hearing will be given to the assessee. But what we would request and urge the income tax department is to come out in the form of a notification or an order that in every case where the variation takes place, it is given in an opportunity of hearing is given. So this is why these are different forms of assessment order. I think I now hand it over to sir for his comments on this aspect, sir.
Yeah, very nicely done it. Now, the only point I believe is, which is bothering people, is that about the opportunity of hearing. Now, no, under the law, even after the amendment, whatever has been done, no order can be passed without an adequate opportunity being given to the taxpayer. So that has to be provided. Now, but hearing, does it mean only physical hearing, or hearing would also can be also be by through digital mode? Now, so if there is clarity in the questionnaire, a reply is loaded timely and with adequate details, there are no further questions, and then a view is formed, and that view is thrown to the taxpayer, and the taxpayer has the opportunity to comment on that view, and with all legal backup and the factual narratives. So if all that is given, I don't think there is any lack of opportunity of hearing. Yes, there could be cases where physical here presence of the taxpayer, or maybe the verbal explanation may be necessary. For that, I think the scheme ought to have that there are some verification units, some investigation units, some units which would be carrying out on the spot verification, and they also would be interacting with the taxpayer. So the matter will be referred to those units. They will do the physical part, whether it is inquiry, survey, verification, or physical interaction with the taxpayer. They would do all that and report back to the assessment unit. So the work is getting divided, I believe. I mean, that's what the original plan is. So functional division is there. Instead of one person handling everything, it's a functional division. There is no lack of opportunity. No opportunity is being taken away. And if the assessee insists that, yes, I want to be heard in person, probably, yes, video conferencing can be one mode of giving that hearing. So that is all being in contemplation, and I think a part of that plan. So that there's no denial of opportunity as such, as I understand this game.
I think just to supplement, sir, if we legally speaking, sir is absolutely right. Opportunity of hearing does not necessarily technically mean a personal hearing. And that's a very fairly well settled legal position. Then opportunity of hearing does not, unless otherwise provided in the statute itself, does not necessarily mean a personal hearing. So opportunity of hearing is clearly given in the scheme of the act, because if it says in every case wherever the variation takes place, an opportunity of hearing is to be given to the assessee. That's clear. It's clearly written in the act. What is not clearly specified and for which a notification is awaited is the personal hearing. And I think personal hearing, obviously everyone would urge the department to give a personal hearing, because everyone feels comfortable when he is able to explain the issue to the assessment center. But that is what is not coming out from the scheme at the present. But what we understand is, to be fair to the assessee, they are going to give opportunity and the option to every assessee for a personal video conference hearing, provided the assessee wants to avail of it. From the department side, probably there will be no denial, but it will be the option to be exercised by the assessee. I think that's how I understand this.
Yeah.
Rohit and sir, I also put three other perspectives. One is the digital ability, both at the officers level and at the assessees level, because you can't expect a mid-size assessee, because as a portal, TIOL represents so many subscribers who are not only publicly limited companies. We represent people who are also small and medium. So the ability to digitally furnish information, professional assistance with regard to that. And whenever you say digitally ability to assess, we also mean the capability in the department to raise this up. And last but not the least, maintenance of digital records and cyber security. I mean, cyber security means the internet security through which these platforms go through. Because I connect and I will be going into something digitally only. No. So how is this being taken care of? And what are the considerations that are there in the mind of the department? Because the load will be going up. So there could be an issue on that.
So I'll answer this, sir. I think then request sir to supplement it. It is easier for me to give an initial comment and for sir to give an expert comment on it. So if I understand the scheme correctly, when we start conceptually with the assessment, when it is going to be a limited scrutiny, it is not, first of all, we have to go away with the first mindset where we used to get a long questionnaire with 30-40 queries, and we were to file the digital information of all the queries which are raised. What we understand now conceptually is going to happen is there are going to be legal issues raised, and if at all factual issues are also going to be raised, they are going to be very limited, and they are going to be very pointed issue. It will not be a generalized kind of a question that may be raised. Now, coming to the digital information being furnished, I think what the scheme initially provided was a particular load of the data which can be uploaded. And when this point was raised to various, tax department officials who conceptualized the scheme, they said, of course, by virtue of one mail, you can have, I think, 10 MB or some kind of limit to the data which you can furnish. But they said that there is no, there is no blockage to your filing multiple replies. So no one is stopping you from filing more than one reply if you want to furnish any factual information along with the digital data. Now coming to the how those data will be analyzed, I think there again conceptually one has to understand the scheme, because scheme has 4 kinds of units. One is the assessment unit, verification unit, technical unit, and the review unit. I think depending upon the nature of the data which will be furnished by the assessee, it will either go to the internally. I think the assistance of the technical and the verification units will be taken to analyze those data. With regard to the security of that data, I think I'm not very sure how the data the security will be will be affected. But I understand there will be appropriate security mechanism which will be built into the system itself, so that the data is appropriately secured and which will be analyzed by the department. I think now I can request sir to supplement.
Nani, Rohit, you are very correct. I mean, in fact, this, as far as security is concerned, this was, as I know, so far I know, I mean, a lot of internal debate was there in the department, and in fact, there is a prevailing view that even currently, even in the current scenario, the officers in the department, they do complain sometimes that they are not getting that sometimes the necessary information. It takes them days and days from the system to get the information which they require for their handling of a matter. So that kind of vigilance is there, that kind of security is there. In fact, the concern is very much there, and that part they have already taken care of. The capacity has been increased to a great extent, I know, and they have anticipated this faceless assessment and the kind of capacity that they would need. So I think there may be some initial glitches and some problems in the initial phase of the implementation of the scheme, but I don't think that is going to be any major hassle in that. Now this about the smaller taxpayers that you talked about, and Rohit, you are very correct that the whole idea is that there would be a lot of information, data would be collected by the systems, people, and they would have information about every taxpayer. Now, therefore, the base in the return of income is being widened. A lot of information is being called, so that with the matching of the information for the smaller taxpayers, there may not be any need unless there is some discrepancy, which bears also a kind of risk. And the assessments, I'm not very sure about indirect taxes, but for direct taxes, I know they are not the major source of collection of revenue. Scrutiny is or searches or surveys, they are not means of collection of revenue. Revenue comes through voluntary payment. It's hardly less than 10%, I believe. So, but if that be the case, that the only purpose that these things serve is to create a deterrence, that if you don't furnish the information correctly in your return, you may be caught. That ability of the department to detect, verify, and put it to the taxpayer that, look, this information that you have furnished is not correct. And that was the further income that was liable to be taxed in your case. That's the purpose. So why these smaller taxpayers should be bothered with the scrutiny? And I believe they would not be. Yes, and all those who are being assisted by professionals. One point was raised that what would happen to the professional assistants. I'm sure the technical unit is supposed to get all the assistance of the professional, the experts, before making the assessment. That is there. But as far as the people who are helping the taxpayer in the process of that assessment, that would go on. I believe maybe that professionals also go digital, and there would be, you will find within months and years, you'll find so many websites working on this aspect of the matter, that look here, I mean, we are here to assist you in filing your tax returns, and you're handling your assessments this faceless manner. So those experts will come, I'm sure. I mean, that's a lot of space for that also. Yes.
Sir,
I have a question, sir, here, from Srivastava. Sir, in fact, the quality of assessment if we look at last couple of decades in the department, actually it has steeply gone down, sir. And that has been a major area of concern for the North Block.
Correct.
And now that fact that faceless assessment, the scheme has come in place, do you think so this, as you rightly said, that, assessment does not account for a major chunk of revenue, the total collections. Do you think that this will go up, sir, in coming years?
Yes, yes. I mean, I believe if implemented in the right spirit, and it fully future, but it must improve the quality of the assessment. Today, the routine kind of questionnaires being issued, routine inquiries being made, not bothering to know what the industry is about, what that particular business model is. I mean, it's just a very pitiable condition that we have gone down to, and skills of investigation have not improved much over the years. So if now the idea is, as I believe, that if some specialists can be developed, for example, there are half a dozen people can be deployed, can be identified, who can handle stock market cases very well. And all stock market cases, wherever in the country they are assigned to those people. And they do have the data of all other cases of that industry, that sector, operational sector. They develop the expertise over the years, and they handle, so they pick up the right kind of questions, which doesn't result into over-pitched, high-pitched assessments. They look into the right corners of evasion, if any, and they would make a fair assessment, having a good idea of what technical unit will render them assistance, that what has been the outcome of all these kinds of additions which have been made in the past, whether they have met with the success. And if not, then why repeat here? So I think if these functional units, if they do their job well, the quality is certainly going to improve.
So, sir, are you, sir, implicitly saying that if the quality of assessment by these functional units are actually, it's going to go up, then parallelly, the professors like Rohit are in trouble?
No,
they will also have
what we ask.
Will have their own quality to match that. Otherwise, their clients are going to face the music.
No, Rohit will not be in trouble. Rohit has the expertise and will develop his expertise to handle those cases. I mean, professionally also,
yes.
It's a
saying, sir, the Rohit is,
corresponding.
Yes. Number of professionals, across India.
So you get the quality of the order. As it is rarely said, that the quality of that order depends on the quality of representation. Absolutely. Right? That also must not.
And here, sir, I would like
so the representation.
Yes, sir. The department, I think yesterday only, they issued a detailed instruction whereby laying down guidelines for uniformity in storage of taxpayers' confidential data.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the department is actually, system is working in that direction, and they have achieved quite a few milestones.
Yes. They would take care. I'm sure.
It will not be fair to throw any stone at them now.
No, not at this stage. Let us wait and see.
I think sir,
before we go to the indirect side, Mr. Vijay Kumar, any questions to Mr. Srivastava and Rohit, so that then we'll go to the indirect, because we are running out of time also.
I think if you're running out of time, maybe we'll hear from the experts, but maybe you can give me a couple of minutes a little later.
Okay.
I don't think that I should. Yeah.
With regard to the customs,
Mr. Sridhar, I have one question, from Rohit. Rohit has beautifully explained the different stages of hearing, which are ingrained in this entire faceless framework. But is Rohit very confident that the department, which is going to give various opportunities of hearing, that the revenue cannot be now accused of hard of hearing?
Sir, again, I said that, you see, hearing has two aspects to it. One is an opportunity to give a reply, and second is the physical hearing. I think opportunity to give a reply is already inbuilt into the scheme itself, where for every variation you are going to get an opportunity. I think what we are looking forward is to an opportunity of a physical hearing or a video conferencing hearing, where we can explain the issues to the department. I think, sir, practically speaking, when I speak to most of my big clients, their only worry for, otherwise they are very happy with the faceless assessment. Their only worry is whether the assessment unit, which is actually going to make an assessment, will be aware of the dynamics of the unit of the or the industry in which they are. And I think this is where Srivastava sir said, probably they are going to specialize. They will have specialized assessment centers, like we used to have special ranges. For example, stock exchanges were used to go to a particular special range. Issues relating to a particular industry go to a particular assessment, where they will already have they will be inculcated and they will be taught about what are the industry dynamics and what are the issues which are going to arise in a particular industry. I think this is where it is important. And if you see, as Srivastava sir pointed out, you see, technical unit has very wide scope. It includes advice on legal, accounting, forensic, information technology, data analytics, management, or any other technical matter. So they are going, but apparently is they are going to, data analytics is going to be the future of the entire assessment. And how the quality of the assessments is going to improve is basically from, there are certain routine issues for which it depends upon the officer how he is going to frame an assessment. I think now there will be uniformity at least on certain routine issues, that the quality of the assessment is going to improve. I think that's where there is going to be a paradigm shift. And so far as we professionals are concerned, in fact, we look at it as an opportunity, because we were not taking up assessments earlier. We are very happy to do a faceless assessment where we are going to only reply to technical replies rather than going and waiting outside the office of the assessing officer. And it will be more intellectually, challenging for us to take matters in appeal where there are intellectual issues, rather than going on frivolous issues like notice not being served, the assessment being made by one officer, not by the other officer. I think those are not issues where the actual intellectual inputs are involved. So actually, we are very happy with this concept.
And just to add that a feedback about a couple of assessments that have come out of Faceless that I got, and I was very happy to know that the people and the chartered accountants told me, that yes, we uploaded the reply and that was accepted, and the orders came within a couple of days, just accepting the returned income. That's a good thing.
I think now we should give some time for the balanced questions regarding customs that we have got. A few questions. One is, we will start with Mr. R.K. Singh. We have noted a few issues. One is, what happens in conditions when the goods in question are life-saving drugs, or time-based products, or there are industrial food intermediates which are very important, PSU imports and defense imports, if there are something like that. So that's the first question. Second is, the circulars mentioned till date talk about if there is a speaking order passed by a proper officer of the faceless assessment group, then review proceedings can lie under 129D subsection 2, with the reviewing authority having administrative control over the proper officer of the faceless assessment group. So in my view is, now if we are going to streamline, we are going to bring in oneness, we are going to bring in the high level thoughts in terms of the quality of the assessment, and still we want to hold on to our review. We want to hold on to further level of scrutiny. Is that the right methodology? Should that happen at all? The second question. The third one is, now this procedure to be adopted by the court in exceptional circumstances, I would say that the question was answered because Himanshu was out of the scene for about a minute or so. Maybe we should complete that question. And the next question that I would have is, first of all, if you go and see, there are a lot of complaints in the press between October 15th and October 20th that certain customs delays are happening. So how is the delay position today, or we are getting the clearances on time? And last but not the least, Turant Seva Kendras play a very important role in the facilitation of the trading community with regard to the formalities of the faceless assessment. How many such Kendras are operating? Are they really operating in the peak that they should start? Because now we are in December. And I have few more questions, but want of time, I would save them. If there is time, I will ask them. Over to Mr. Singh and then to Mr. Himanshu.
Thanks. I lost you for a while, so I may have missed a few questions, but I'll say a few things here. One, the delays complaints had been there, and to my feedback, they continue to be there. The major complaints seem to be the examination, that the examination reports are now becoming more and more difficult and tedious, with the result that bills of entries get thrown back to the PAG. My suggestion in this regard was that because we are talking about faceless assessment and examination necessarily cannot be totally faceless, and taking a cue from the Supreme Court judgment yesterday or day before, if we could install CCTV cameras in the examination area, that will take care of a lot of complaints of various things which keep happening. That will be my first suggestion. Second, the standardization of the queries will happen eventually, but there is always a danger, as per the culture of the department, that any objection raised by the lower officers, the senior officers feel very reluctant to overrule those objections for various reasons. So somebody can look at it later, somebody can question them or whatever, and therefore, whether it is possible, and I'm just throwing a possibility, that the overruling could be multi-officer overruling. Maybe the conveners of the PSC, with the two of them, they could possibly overrule so that the responsibility at least gets divided and the accusations cannot be made. Those things will ensure that frivolous queries, if they are raised, the person can be pulled up without any adverse consequences for no reason. You talked about the Turant Seva Kendras. Yes, that I do not have the latest feedback, but those are the fulcrums. Turant Seva Kendra is one, and the very, very meticulous monitoring of the pendencies at the end of the day is another. These two ensured, I'm sure it will be a great success. But I must commend the CBIC that these people have this time taken care of bringing out the good guidelines, good brochures, detailed procedures to train the people. It is too early to pass a judgment, but there are reports from the ground that it was done rather hurriedly, and even the staff at the moment is not fully conversant. So with the passage of time, I see good future for it, and I see good future for the expertise developing for various things, which will take care of anomalies, take care of variances and everything. So I would commend.
Mr. I think we lost him suddenly. Mr. Himanshu, there is one more side also. One
Over
more
to you.
question you didn't answer. Yeah. Yeah, sir. About first checks. Mr. Singh, about first checks. Because the NAC is about first checks.
About the first, hello,
First
I
checks,
lost
the
you.
quality of the first checks. Quality of the first checks.
Actually, number one, they have said the first checks will be minimal, and they have laid down the situations where first checks could be ordered. Now, first check is not posing that kind of great difficulty as the second check is posing, because second check, when you do first check, the bill of entry goes back to faceless group. In case of second check, with a minor variation, it comes back to the purport assessment group. And that is causing the major difficulty. That's why I was suggesting that any kind of CCTV systems in the examination areas will take care of a lot of these complaints.
And what about the view with regard to these product groups like life-saving drugs, time-based products? Because, for example, there was a complaint in the month of September about delays in oxypulse meters. It was there in the press. And we have also received one particular mail, one or two mails. We have received some mails with regard to the shipbreaking industry in Alanga, because they are being delayed, and as a result of which, if the clearances are delayed, they will not be able to get the on time. So, with regard to these kind of things, what's your view, sir?
My view is that these kind of things are known to the powers that be, and the guidelines actually specifically mention these items, that these items should not be delayed, There should not be any kind of unnecessary queries. But as I said, it is too early. The things are changing so rapidly. It will take time to settle down. But I do not see any difficulty happening for long in these areas. I see difficulty happening in the areas of plastics, in the areas of scrap, in those traditional areas, where it is still happening even now.
Then what about your view on that power of review, sir? Do you think still, once again, there should be a power of review left? Because the circular talks about it, the scheme talks about it. Shall lie with the reviewing authority who has got administrative control over the officer of the Faceless Assessment Group. Should there be a review at all now?
My answer will be twofold. Number one, the Faceless Assessment Group is only going to do an assessment order. No other adjudication will be done by them in any case. So those will be a small number of cases. All other adjudications for violations will come to Port Assessment Group in any case. So it will be system like before. And video is good. The right of the assessee to demand a physical hearing will remain intact. Many assessees may not demand, but if somebody wants a physical hearing, it will be, to my mind, impossible as per the present system of law and natural justice to deny that physical hearing to him. Over to you.
Mr. Himanshu, on all these issues, your views, please. I know there are a lot of them, but I'm sorry, we still have a lot of questions, but we can't cover them.
So, Mr. Sridhar, I would say that there are two ways of looking at any major transition or change in system. One is to look at it, what is happening in the phase of transition, in that granularity of time, where what happened in the month of October and November and December. And there's another way of looking at it, that is step back, let the transition stabilize and give it a look in 6 months down the line. What will be the priorities? What are the strategic things that we need to focus on? As Mr. R.K. Singh said, that whether it is time-sensitive goods and their early quick clearance, that every field formation would be aware of that priority and they try and address to it. There would be circumstances and exceptions, which, but they are not the rule. And those exceptions can be dealt administratively. If I have to see that what 6 months down the line, what are the few things that government may be required to structurally make efforts to do it is, and one of the illustration, if I may say, that the degree of specialization and expertise that is expected from the faceless assessment groups about their knowledge of the product, about their knowledge about the valuation of the products, the engineering, the technical aspects of the product, I guess that needs to move up significantly. And what kind of training infrastructure that the government will be able to provide so as to bring this step change in the technical knowledge about the product and the business dimension of those things. Because currently, if you say that the 11, if we talk about 11 national assessment centers and the faceless assessment groups, the allocation of the chapter and the product has been done based on what is the volume of trade of those products through those ports. That doesn't, in just that because there's a volume of trade, doesn't mean that there is an expertise about it. And if I have to give an illustration, and the extreme one where government will have to somewhere benchmark this expertise development framework, whether NASEN as a training infrastructure base has the capabilities as we see in South Korean customs, where if there is an automobile assessment group, the automobile assessment group has all the infrastructure to actually give you a exploded view of the automobile, all the parts, components, classifications, fitment, form, functionality, everything about it. There is a joy of seeing that kind of an infrastructure to develop that expertise. Developing that kind of a structure and providing the officers that support to develop that would be a key ask, and it's a long shot. It is not easy for Nelson to be able to develop this in 6 months or a 1 year's time. So and that brings me to this, that whatever has been done till now is a lot of is based on what government has done. But there is a B2G or business to government kind of a collaboration dimension that is missing in this whole transition. How will businesses collaborate and create that infrastructure so that we move towards a success of this narrative? There can't be a one-way effort of the government only making it a success. The other side of the business coming in together with the government to develop whatever is the gap in making this a success is also a watch out area. So I would say that business to government aspect needs to be brought out, and next few months there should be an increased focus on that. I'll pause there.
Over to Mr. Dhingra. Mr. Dhingra, one aspect which we have missed out in the last point was that the principal commissioner and commissioner of customs of the port may at any time, pending the faceless assessment groups, decide to direct the PAG to pull the bill of entry from the faceless assessment to PAG in the following situations. It says, when there is a specific alert of intelligence available, where the principal commissioners has ordered to do so for reasons recorded in writing. So what's your view, sir, on these kind of provisions that are existing in the scheme, even as we stand now in the transition stage? Mr. Dhingra.
It shows again that we are still not out of the old mindset where we still want to have some control directly or indirectly on the entire assessment process. If we leave this door open, then it will not be an exception, but somewhere it becomes the rule as well. Where many times we have seen that DRI alert is there or other alerts are there. So on that basis, they can pull out. Yes, there are valid concerns as well. They are unscrupulous importer and exporter, which violate the law for pecuniary benefits. And DR is one of the best institutions we have got. So they come into play and they issue alert, and that has to be respected. So we generally tell people that when DRA comes calling, they know their job very well, and that means there is either something seriously wrong with you or something seriously wrong with them. And seriously wrong with DRA is not the rule, but a very, very rare exception is there. It can happen, it happens, and it's not out of it. So I think what needs to be done, that this kind of power given to the chief commissioner should be exercised very, very rarely, and there should be an oversight or reporting of such kind of instances to the board, so that board is aware that these kind of instances are happening. Initially, there is a need for it, and over a period of time, probably the officers will also understand that it's not required now.
One important question for last question, sir, because if you see the circulars issued till date, the important responsibilities of the National Assessment Center is also very clearly mentioned. There is a huge set of items, and one of them, it very clearly says, examine the orders and appellate orders in relation to the assessment practices to the goods assigned to each faceless groups, and provide inputs to the for uniformity of assessment orders. It starts about that. It talks about constitution of working groups for monitoring the timeliness. It talks about communication and outreach for departmental officers. Whatever has been enlisted in the circulars that have been issued from June to December, do you think the role of NAC over the faceless assessment groups envisaged is possible, considering that, because this entire work is being done in addition to the normal other work that they have? So do you think that the timeliness for NAC to intervene in all these issues is realistic in terms of the time, or what is your view?
This kind of, the responsibility cast on the NACs and other, the groups is very onerous. And the way we have seen the department in the last 30, 40, 50 years, the way it has gone, and even after so many years, there is still lack of judicial discipline in the departmental officers, which is going to be there. Whatever assessment group we create or the expertise group we create, unless the authorities follow the law of the land in letter and spirit, nothing is going to change. So most of the time, they pass the order with the revenue bias, and even up to the commissioner appeal level, generally we tell people that, okay, we will get an order, fair order from the tribunal. That mindset has to change. That is the first thing that needs to be done. Once that is done, that if there is a ruling of this higher judicial authority, be it the tribunal, be it the High Court or the Supreme Court, and that has to be followed. And if the board comes out with a mandate that people have to follow the law in letter and spirit, the thing is going to change. So this kind of onerous thing which are put in there in the assessment groups, the specialization will come in place only when 2-3 things are happened. And I'll borrow one thought which Himanshu has already mentioned, that like from the this Korean customs assessment group and the specialized group, like if, for example, a car is being imported and this automobile group is there, they should have the fully excluded parts and classification, all the rulings on that particular aspect with them readily available to them. If we give this kind of tools to the authority and we give them the mandate that if they pass judicious order, nobody is going to bother them. Because most of the time we hear this thing during the hearings, of course I can pass this order, but if we follow this, it's against the board circular, CBI will be after me. So all those mindset has to change. If that changes, the only thing, then we can see a real change. Otherwise, nothing is going to happen. All this will be new processes. Some benefit will be there, but for real benefit to come down at the ground level, the mindset and the dictate from the top has to come out that please follow the law in letter and spirit.
Mr. Vijay Kumar, your intervention, please.
Do we still have the time for that?
No, I think we have the time because Shailendra has not opened his mouth. He's not said anything with regard to the time.
I don't know.
I'm very keen to find out from Himanshu ji in the implication for this faceless assessment, particularly for special valuation branch. How do you look at the functioning of this, and what will happen in coming years, perhaps, or maybe the SPV will be dismantled very soon? How do you look at this, the entire thing? Now that we have different kinds of functional units here in assessment, and some of them will have, largely based on expertise and their exposure to certain, the assessment and examination of goods and, all those specific characteristics. So particularly the role of special valuation branch, which normally delays a lot of, it takes a huge amount of time.
So, Mr. Shailendra, let me guess. While it is very difficult to hazard a guess as to how the law will change, but if I see the underpinning of what is happening from a customs faceless assessment is that if there are 5 circulars which have been issued, there is primarily one non-tariff notification which changes the powers of the assessing officer and makes it all India power, so that the faceless assessment cannot be challenged. So other than that change in Customs Act, rest everything is an administrative order in the form of a circular. So the change in law, while it is a big change, as different from income tax, this is an administrative change more than a legislative change. And to that extent, if I have to overlay that on your question, what will happen with the SVB? SVB is born out of the custom valuation rules, which says that related party transactions needs to be examined. So it follows from section 14 and the custom valuation rules. I don't think that in the current framework, the faceless assessment is meant to change or will drive the change of legislation in relation to valuation, because these principles on which the SVB process is standing is a universal principle. It is borrowed from WTO. It is enshrined in law. So I don't think that the current phase of change will make any major difference to the SVB process. But I'm nobody to say that in due course of time, as further evolution happens, whether SVB will be dealt more in a more integrated manner with the transfer pricing, and there will be a collaboration between CBDT and CBICs to come on the relationship aspects and its impact on pricing and profit, etc. That will be a very different administrative change. Whether that would mean whether CBIC and CBDT will merge for this purpose, for a larger purpose, I guess these are bigger questions. But for now, only looking at it from a perspective of faceless assessment, I don't think that it will lead to that dramatic a change. Sorry,
So Vijay Kumar.
we are taking the time away from Mr. Vijay Kumar. We have requested him to speak a few times, but apologies. I guess over to you, sir.
No, sir, it's okay. We have been enriched by your expressions.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Sridhar, back to you.
Yeah. Yes, Sridhar, is it my time?
Yeah, yes, sir. That's why.
Thank you so much. It was worth waiting for this because I heard from so many experts. I won't take more than 2-3 minutes. I think one thing that we can all be assured is Mr. Rohit's career is safe. There's absolutely no problem about that. I remember a very senior customs officer once told me, I was saying that there's no future for consultants and lawyers. The department is getting all kinds of simplification. So maybe we'll all go out of business. And he told me, as long as we exist, you have no problem. So all these changes that we have been bringing, in fact, the Central Excise Act of 1944 has a preface which says that the act has been brought in to consolidate and simplify all the complicated laws prevailing at that time in 1944. Since then, I think we have been trying to simplify and do things, perhaps with the intention of avoiding the third party. Unfortunately, between the taxpayer and the tax officer, there is a third person in the bedroom, both in the customs as well as income tax. In the customs, however much we try, it's very difficult to eliminate that customs broker. In fact, he's such a peculiar character. You find that the customs officers are actually afraid of him. But he creates an impression to the importer that customs officer is a Rakshas. I'm here to protect you from that fellow. And he manages. We used to think of a situation where people used to say the corporate wheel has to be lifted to reveal the ugly face of the avoider or evader or whatever. But now I think we are trying to provide a sort of impenetrable wheel so that neither the SSC nor the officer or perhaps a third person can resort to malfeasance, hopefully. But Srivastava sir, there's a basic difference in this faceless assessment in customs and income tax. In income tax, you can go on answering your technical queries. Mr. Rohit can take any number of opportunities before the so-called personal hearing where the person is not visible. But in customs, what happens is the goods are there. The damn goods attract a lot of penalty before you decide your assessment, faceful or faceless. I'm told, as Mr. R.K. Singh was saying, the scheme announced grandiose in Delhi doesn't travel that easily to the field. The field officers today, I'm told, are not very, very convenient, very, very happy with the system, and they are not very conversant also. As Mr. Dhingra was saying, they are supposed to give an order within 15 days. Just the other day, somebody told me that he was asked to give a letter saying that he doesn't mind if the order is given within 6 months. And the customs officer was trying to explain to him that I will not be able to give the order within 15 days, so you give me an opportunity to give it within 6 months. And when he gives that, he says, another letter has been taken, I don't want personal hearing. One point Mr. Rohit Jain and Srivastava have not explained or not covered, and which is a doubt for me. Can we have a faceless personal hearing? In the sense, the SSC or Mr. Rohit can appear for personal hearing, but the other side is vacant. You see an image of the justice symbol, or the revenue symbol. And revenue reminds me, as Mr. Srivastava said, this assessment, it doesn't bring in much revenue. There used to be a saying that the revenue comes in spite of the revenue officers, not because of them. So if everything is left open, I think we'll still get the revenue. And one major problem is in customs, sir, as yes, Mr. R.K. Singh is back with us, as he was saying. You have an assessment group, a faceless assessment group, they are not able to assess, they have some problem, column 16 is not filled, they sell it back to the port of assessment, and we are back to square one. We are back to square one after going through several other squares, which means my goods are delayed. My assessment is delayed, my clearance is delayed, my business is done, out. And when with this faceless assessment, another problem that should be addressed is, somebody used to say in customs, if every rule, every notification, every circular, every act is to be followed, half the people will be stranded in the airports. They will not be allowed to come out. Same thing is the case with goods. If there are some minor variations, and if the faceless assessment group points out that comma is not correct, this name is not correct, and if goods are not allowed to be cleared, I think it will be very difficult. Well, I'm perhaps a little agitated about how things are happening in the field, but as most of us, as we have all said, and as Mr. Dhingra says, maybe once the attitudinal change happens. Unfortunately, this attitudinal change also we have been requesting for the last 70 years. Certainly, it's a good scheme. After all, nobody really likes to see the face of a taxman. So if there is faceless assessment, in the long run, this has to be the way of assessment. And we have seen wherever technology has replaced human beings, corruption has come down to a large extent. And if that happens, I think assessments can be better and things will be better. Thank you, sir.
With regard to the questions, there is one question from Mr. Govind Agarwal. I think Rohit has wished to take up this question. What precautions assessee should take in faceless assessments?
Yeah,
Rohit.
I wanted to write to him, but I chose to, give it a live reply. So,
okay.
Important precautions which are to be taken is, first is to understand and analyze the issue actually being raised when a questionnaire or an inquiry letter comes to you, and then filing a reply with all whatever judicial precedent you seek to rely upon, with all evidences which you seek to rely upon, and it should be a comprehensive reply. When we say comprehensive reply, it should not be a complicated reply. I think there's a difference between a comprehensive reply and a complicated reply, particularly considering the fact that Sir said it is not going to be a personal hearing, and if at all the hearing will take place, it will be before no one. Actually, I will be only attending the hearing, making representations and argument, but there will be no one on the other side.
Oracle, sir. Oracle.
So I think, therefore it is all the more important that whatever comprehensive reply you want to give, it should be a complete, comprehensive, simple reply, which should cover each and every aspect with judicial precedents, with evidences which you want to place on record. I think that's the most important precaution which you need to take.
And there is one observation by Mr. V. Srivastava. Unlike income tax, customs will deal with live consignments. And this is exactly what Vijay expressed finally, and Mr. Singh and everybody talked about it. Unlike income tax, customs will deal with live consignments, and undue delays can bring industrial activity and final draft are fine. It would appear that an opportunity will be available to be heard. I would be happy to know the timelines by which this process will be completed. He's talking on the income tax faceless assessment. The timelines, Rohit, the timelines would definitely mean that what will be the timelines, he says.
The timelines will be the timelines for completion of assessment. I think that's very clear. But I think he's talking of indirect tax. He's saying while...
on top he said while final draft etc. are fine, because draft and final draft are only in the income
Yeah.
tax.
So
But
this is all part. This all has to take place within the timeline which is permitted for completion of assessment.
I think I now give it to Mr. Shailendra for his final comments, because I don't have any other questions on the question answer board.
No,
Mr.
no.
Shailendra, your views, so then we.
No, no, it's perfect. In fact, I mean, we have heard, and my views are very clear. In fact, I mean, what Arkesan Saab suggested, and the custom side, yes, it's a very consignment basis, as Mr. Subramaniam said, that it will be very time sensitive, and we will have to see how this faceless thing actually works. We need to wait for a couple of months, I mean, maybe 6 months time, for the income tax as well as customs. Yes, looking at some of those granular aspects, naturally the custom will be very different, because these are all transactional method where, the live consignments coming, and on a transaction basis, a lot of things are to be done. Income tax is of course return based, and it takes, almost a year, to do that process. And there would be, of course, the timeline are notified as per the IT Act. So, those will be always there as it is. But the custom side, yes, I still feel that, the Turant aspect is there, but I don't know how Turant this is going to be done. That is where the industry will have to give some time to the revenue, to the custom side. And we have to see that how Turant, even the board responds to it, and a lot of changes. And as Himanshu rightly said, that a lot of administrative changes have been done in the custom side. And examination is one weakling which needs to be taken care of. Because that is something which may derail the entire, the benefits of this scheme. And as Sir also rightly pointed out, that, that is CCTV could be a good solution. And on a real-time basis, maybe that data could be fed in the system. Only then, the robust infrastructure and the data feeding and, close monitoring will perhaps yield the desired results. So that is how I look at it.
Thank you very much, Mr. G.C. Srivastava, Rohit, Mr. R.K. Singh, and Mr. Himanshu, and our dear friend, Mr. Dhingra. So thank you so much for the very perhaps lively proceedings. There was not a minute of perhaps even a pause, because the subject and the questions, I still have about 7-8 questions left. But anyhow, due to paucity of time, we leave it at that. And then hope to see all of you in another episode with the TIOL. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.